Hello everyone, it's Natasha from Treasure Books. In this video, we are keeping it simple and creating 6 easy and quick projects using greeting cards with plenty of examples. All right, let's dive in. Just a very quick apology in advance if you hear chewing noises or background noises. This is the culprit. You are the culprit. Yes, you are. Starting with idea number 1, which is this very simple Dosa dough mini journal or notebook booklet type of thing, which basically looks like this. So you need 2 greeting cards for this. We create a signature in both of them. You also have a pocket in the middle, and then I added a pocket here, and when you flip it around, a pocket here. Very easy to create this type of thing. All you need is 2 greeting cards. I'm using in this case these blank greeting cards, and we'll talk about, you know, if you've got greeting cards you want to use that have writing in them or you want to keep them as memories. We'll get to that. So first of all, to create this book, basically all you need to do is back them onto each other like this, which is great because we're covering this back part. How simple is this? We're creating this little Z type of thing happening, and I wanted to create a pocket in here. So of course, instead of gluing these panels completely together, we're only going to glue the sides down. So just these 3 sides. Here we go. Pop this one on top. Make sure they are completely level. I'm going to open them now and just press down, make sure there's no glue seeping out. And excellent, this is what we have. We have attached 2 greeting cards together just like that and created a pocket here in the middle. How easy and simple is that? And now we can go ahead and perhaps bind a little signature in here. Here we go, signature 1. Make 3 holes and bind it in using a 3-hole pamphlet stitch binding. You can sew right through also. If you have a long armed stapler, you can also staple them. Whichever way you do it, we're simply creating a simple little booklet. We're now going to repeat the same thing on the other side. Out through the middle hole, back in through the top hole, out again through the bottom hole, and back in through the middle hole. Tie a double knot. And I love this because it kind of feels like it's ongoing, you know, it just keeps on going. All right, now that that's done, time to make this an obvious pocket. So perhaps a little notch somewhere in the middle, and done. Perfect. And then you would get on to embellishing. So as you can see here, I've added a little sticker on the front page, a pocket here with a tag, and then this one here is a tag that opens right up. So, you know, just creating some writing spaces. This is a beautiful journaling companion. It can be popped inside a journal, taken with you in your purse. Another sticker here. Just kept it really simple, and that's it. That one's done. Now, if your cards are not blank cards like mine, of course, you know, usually you would have writing on this side of the card. You can go ahead, cover it with something, which is what I've done here. As you can see, usually the writing would be all over the place, so you can just cover the whole thing with some scrapbook paper, or not. Perhaps you want to leave it there as a little memory. But that is essentially idea number 1. Told you it's quite simple. Idea number 2 is completely giving the greeting card a makeover, and we're just hiding all traces of the greeting card. So we are covering it, and I'm going to do one very quickly to show you how to do that and how to attach this cool closure. Like I worked out a very simple new way. Oh, I don't know if it's new, but Idea number 2 is to completely cover the greeting card that you don't need anymore. I've got this one. I haven't got anyone whose kids are turning 2 and who happens to be a boy and who happens to be in love with soccer. So I'm gonna cover this whole card. Starting off with a thinner piece of fabric, I'm going to cover the inside fold first. I'm going in with this very, very cheap brand fabric glue. It doesn't have to be fabric glue, it can just be PVA glue. Even though this glue is water-based and it will warp, I suppose for this project it's okay. Why? Because we're covering it with fabric. If you're covering it with paper, which you can also do, then the warping might be a little bit of an issue. So basically you can do this exact same thing. Instead of using a fabric, you can use scrapbook paper. All right, now that we've done the inside fold, I'm just gonna fold it down again, get another piece of fabric, and I've cut it down to the size that I need. So basically I wanted to cover the whole card and leave some space around, but just wanted to say that it is wrinkly, but I'm not going to iron it because it's not necessary. So first, back to the glue. I'm going to apply this glue all over, apart from the spine. I'm not going to put any glue on the spine. I like to leave a little bit of give there for the opening and the closing. So here we go. Try not to have puddles of glue on the card because it might seep through onto the fabric and it might show, especially if it's quite thin and see-through fabric. All right, so we're putting the wrong side down, of course, over the card. Actually, it's probably easier to do it this way because you can see where you're putting your card. So we're gonna pop this on top, just like so. And smooth it all down. Great. Now we're going to work on getting some beautiful corners happening. I'm just gonna go in and apply a little bit of glue just to the corners first and just fold down the corners. Everyone has their own way of doing this kind of thing, so you just do whatever is comfortable for you. Before I did the corners, I probably should have done this first. So you want to fold it, make sure that it has enough give there for the card to open and close. Okay, now I'm gonna apply glue here. Okay, do the other side. Glue at the bottom, turn it around, and glue the other side down. Lovely. Okay, so the corners are looking quite neat, and I did that because I don't want to be putting any metal corners on there, but I do want them to be neat. At this stage, while everything is wet, fold it down again. It's probably gonna want to open, but just maybe use your bone folder because I've made it quite tight. You know, I was tightening and as I was folding, so that's why it's trying to open. At this stage, we're going to cover these panels. You can use whatever you have. Let's see if this is gonna fit. Darn it. Not quite covering the whole thing like I was hoping it would. Well, maybe I can use another blank card. Separated the two panels from each other. I'm gonna round the edges, and that is absolute perfection. Look at that. It's looking white in the video, but it's actually kind of grayish, very light blue color. I might even ink the edges just a little bit. And now glue it down. At this stage, this side is glued down. And before I glue this side down, I want to create a little book plate here. Just have some pieces of fabric, a little bit of burlap, and a piece of cardstock. Cut it all down. Here we go, that's looking pretty good. I might just add a little bit of glue here. Pop that down. And now, grab my cover. I need to make sure that it's centered. And now open this up, poke some holes. One here and one here. And now I'm gonna pop this brad through. And the other one, of course. Secure the prongs. Make sure they're nice and flat. Excellent. Now that book plate is there to stay. It's not going to go anywhere. In this case here, I actually forgot to do the book plate before gluing that panel down. So instead of using the brads to hold it down, I just applied glue. And now I'm gluing the second panel down. That is looking really good. So obviously you can do this with anything. You can do it with cereal box, doesn't have to be greeting cards. Now I'm going to bind in a signature because I want to show you this, the closure that I used here. I've chosen some blue pages to bind in, and I'm doing the exact same thing I've done in the previous one. We're doing a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. All right, so now I wanted to show you that closure. I think I might have said before that it's a new closure. I'm sure it's not like new as in I invented it, but I need a strip of ribbon or something that can wrap all the way around. I was going with the blue, but I think this will also be okay. All right, so now what I do, I'm going to attach this to the binding. This is like so simple. Honestly, I don't know why I haven't thought of this in all of my years of crafting. Why didn't I think of this earlier? All right, the second one goes through the other side. I just want to make them even here. And that's literally it. And you have this attached permanently. The only thing I'm thinking now is I would have liked this to be up higher a little bit. And I'm also thinking that maybe I want to make this into something a little bit more fun. I'm just testing something out. This is why it's always good to have some beads that have a wide opening in your stash. Excellent. Just making this a little bit more fancy, so I added some beads over here. You can see I wish I had another one of these so I could do the exact same thing here, but I don't. I only have one more, so I'm going to play around with these. It's not my first choice, but anyway, here's what we have. And I'm just going to tie a knot down the bottom. This is why you need a long piece, because when you're tying knots and adding beads and stuff, it all takes up space. And there we go. That looks a little bit boho-ish. I'm not sure if this fabric is Christmas. Is it? Not that it matters, but we covered that greeting card completely. And this closure is attached to that binding on the spine. And very cute, quick little project. I love it. And on this one here, different sized card and different fabrics and everything, but exactly the same protocol. And on the inside, you know, I went with the pink because of the pink in the fabric and these tea dyed pages, and that looks quite lovely indeed. Easy and quick. All right, moving on. Idea number 3 is this gatefold little piece, and basically you only need 2 cards for this, and it opens up all the way. So it's like a little piece on its own or a journaling companion. To create this project, you need pretty much 2 cards that hopefully are exactly the same. They don't have to be exactly the same, but you want them to be non-directional. So you can see with this one here, it doesn't matter if it's upside down or not, it's exactly the same. This one is directional, so this is the right way up, you see that? Now that might be an issue, because basically what we're going to be doing is you have your 2 cards and one of them will be flipped upside down like this. We're going to nestle them together like this. So to demonstrate this project, I'm going to use just plain cardstock. And basically what you want to do, like I said before, nestle them together like this. So these 2 pieces here will be completely glued down, or you can leave an opening up the top for a pocket. But before we do that, I want to score these 2 pieces right there in the middle. So I'm going to find my middle here and score. And then on this one, I'm going to find my middle here. And if you don't have a scoring board, that's fine. You can just fold it down without a scoring board. No issue there. Okay, that's 1 and that's 2. Erase these marks and you can see how that's going to look there. Now I need to glue these pieces together. Like I said before, if you wish, you can just glue the 3 sides down and create a pocket up here at the top, but I'm just going to glue them completely down. Pop this on top and just make sure that when it's folded down that everything is meeting perfectly here and not overlapping. If it is overlapping, just move it to the side a little bit more and that's perfect. I'm going to round the corners. It's not necessary, but I think it looks nice. For my little closure for the circles, I'm going to use this paint swatch that I have. cut little circles. I'm going to choose 2 little brads and just position the circles where I want them, the closure. So it can be in the middle, it can be down the bottom. I was kind of going, I don't know, I had an idea of like a wardrobe door, right? And now I'm not going to poke all the way through. I just wanted to mark a little bit on the card. I can kind of see where that is. And now this one, open this up, and now I'm going to poke those holes. So don't poke the holes through both of these pieces. Make sure you open it all the way up and then poke the hole. Same thing for these 2 pieces, right through the middle. Pop the brad through and through the card. Secure that brad down and repeat on the other side. Okay, and now to add the closure, I'm using a little thin piece of twine. I need something heavy to hold this down. Would have used my phone, but I'm filming with my phone. And now lift this up and the twine can go all the way underneath. Tie a knot and a double knot. Get rid of the excess. And here we go. So the first time you're closing this, you might have to lift this piece a little bit just to make sure that the twine can kind of go underneath. And there it is, done. So now going backward to the inside, as you noticed, I'm sure, these are obviously visible on the inside. So of course what you can do, as I've done in this one here, is just cover the whole thing or just cover those 2 panels, or, you know, just pop down some stickers or some more circles just to hide the prongs from the brad, if that, you know, is getting on your nerves. Otherwise, another thing that you can do, as I've done here, and by the way, you can use 3 cards and you can have it larger like this. You can kind of play around with this system. And the way I envisioned a closure on this one, because this one, the opening is facing out rather than in this way like on the other cards. So the way I envisioned using this piece is popping a thread underneath and just tying a bow here, just like this. And then this whole piece, the back side can be glued onto a journal page, for example. Or you can simply apply some masking tape to hold this in place and then glue another piece of cardstock or paper on top of that to hide and to secure the closure. So that's a quite fun and easy way to use up your cards or just random cardstock that you have lying around and creating these beautiful little gatefold beauties. Okay, moving along to idea number 4, which is tab binding your cards together. So because my previous video was on tab binding and I went through, it was a full tutorial where I showed you how you can do the tab binding. I'm not going to repeat it in this tutorial, in this video, but I will link that video in the description down below and also up here. But I will show you kind of what I did in this journal. Let's call it a journal, even though it's just greeting cards stacked together and bound together using tab binding method. But this is a really good project for your cards. Let's say you have a stack of anniversary cards or birthday cards that you want to keep intact. You want to keep them together. You want to see the sentiments that were written by people that you love on the inside. Okay, this is a perfect way that you will bind them together into a little book. These cards that I used here, they're not greeting cards, they're actually invitation cards that I found at an op shop. So I just made a little booklet. And when I was doing the tab binding, I was using these extra long tabs so that I could create slots, right, to slot things into. So you can see here I have a little bookmark or a journaling spot, and I have this laminated leaf. I embellished just the front cover with these gold pieces, and then basically all of the tabs, apart from this one, I don't know, I forgot about that one, but all of the tabs basically are like slots like this. And you know, they can be treated as pockets like this. That was just sitting on top of the previous tab. And then I have these little bits and pieces, vellum pieces in there. Just made it really fun. Same here. You know, so when you watch that video, the tab binding, if you haven't seen it already, this is another thing that you can kind of play around with. They can all be little slots, you know, up here or down here. You can really play around with that idea. But the cards are all in order. That's what the back looks like. It looks really quite nice. And then for the closure, I used bulldog clips and I attached this little chain, like a broken chain that I have. and the claw clasp, on it goes, and journal is kept closed. That video I mentioned, the tab binding video, is quite comprehensive. I suggest you watch it, but I'm going to show you very quickly. Let's say these are your anniversary cards and you want to bind them together. So you would just have them stacked up in the order that you want them. And I'm going to demonstrate with just magazines here. You grab your first one and you apply your tabs onto it. You can see here I'm using 3 tabs to start off with, whereas on this one I only used 2 tabs, but they're quite wide. So there are all of these variables you can play around with. Then you turn this one around, pop your next card right next to that one, and then you pop your 2 tabs right in between the 3 tabs. Coming back to this one, because I used 2 tabs here, on my next card I only used 1 tab. In this case we're going with 2 tabs, and then you pop this on top and move the 3 tabs down. So that's your 2 cards already bound together. Get your next card, 3 tabs this time around, pop it on top of the stack, and the 2 tabs come down. And now for my last one, you don't have to apply any tabs until the last one, just pop it on top and the tabs come down, and that's as easy and as simple as that is. And of course, you know, you have all of your cards and you're done. So of course you can apply this binding method in various ways, as I do explain in that video. And you take it to the next level with, you know, the uses of material, the types of tabs that you use, and all that sorts of stuff. All right, let's move along. Idea number 5 is the simplest one of all of them, and we are just basically turning a greeting card into a little mini journal or like a journal companion, that sort of thing. So all we're gonna do is grab your card and a selection of pages you want to bind in there, and then nestle your pages into a little signature. Excellent. Make sure it fits inside. This is perfect. And now, because we're going to be doing fun stuff here, instead of doing a 3-hole pamphlet stitch starting from the inside, we're going to start from the outside. So as usual, just poke your holes right through, 3 holes. And now instead of starting here to do your binding, you want to start from the outside in, and that way you'll finish with your strings on the outside rather than the inside. The needle can go away, make everything nice and tight. And the next thing we're going to do after tying this bow, there we go, bow is tied and the journal is bound. And now we're going to attach a little charm here. So I was going to go with this, attach it through the binding, but I feel like it's too chunky for this dainty little thing. So I found these 2 little pieces in my stash from some broken chain, and I'm going to attach them on there. So first they can both go onto this jump ring, and then I think I want another little something. How about this little piece? It's kind of relevant. And then of course the jump ring gets attached directly onto the binding. Maybe I'll go onto the back of the bow, just there, you see that? And here we go, very quick, fun and easy. At this stage I would probably round the corners, maybe I'll do some inking, maybe clip some things onto the pages, and of course most definitely cover the back. And also if there's any writing here, perhaps I would cover it. And then this can be a little standalone gift for someone, or the way that I usually envision these things. This is a journal I'm currently working on, and it's not bound yet, but it will be. And then I could do something like this. I always have these big pockets right there in the middle of a journal, and look at that, how beautiful does that look? Just an extra little piece that lives inside a journal. And last but not least, idea number 6 is to bind your cards together using the Kettle stitch binding. Probably should have chosen a different colored thread so that you can actually see, but in any case, it's just a way of actually stitching your cards together and also keeping them intact. So what I mean is, just like when we did the tab binding before, you lay your cards on top of one another, and then you can create all sorts of, flip outs, and I've done all sorts of things here, just covering, the backs of the cards, adding some stickers and pockets and fun stuff like that when I cover the backs. And if you're wanting to use this kind of binding for, you know, your special cards from your anniversary, your birthday, or for your kid's first birthday, or whatever, you know, this is the perfect way to bind them together. So I do have also a full tutorial for kettle stitch binding, and that video is called Greeting Cards Junk Journal Tutorial. In that video, basically what we do is create signatures like this by nestling your pages together like we usually do, and then we bind the signatures using the kettle stitch binding. However, what happens in that case is your cards are separated. So you might have here, happy first birthday, whatever, and then the sentiment is at the back of the signature. You know, your cards are broken up. If you want to keep them together, they need to be bound, stacked like this. I will leave the link for that tutorial in the description box. I go in quite detailed into the kettle stitch binding, but I actually prepared this because I'm going to show you very quickly how to do it, and I'm using just this just for demonstration purposes. Let's say these are your beautiful sentimental cards that you want to bind together. They don't have to be exactly the same size or any of that. The only thing that you have to make sure, and it will make sense in a moment, I promise. The only thing you have to make sure is that all of the holes are in exactly the same level, same spots, right? And the way that you do that is to first, you'll nestle your cards together, and then you poke your holes, just as if we're going to do the pamphlet stitch, the 3-hole pamphlet stitch. All right, holes are all poked, and then you lay your cards in the order that you want to bind them. Okay, the holes are all in the same line. They're all aligned, right? Your cards are now in the order that you want them. And this is how you do the kettle stitch binding. Like I said, that video is a lot more detailed. So if there's anything that doesn't make sense in what I'm about to show you, and this is going to be a very quick tutorial, if there's anything that doesn't make sense, you can always go and watch that video. Basically, first thing you need is a very long string. Don't even, just get a really, what's this? Don't need that. Just a long string and double it up. So now pop your needle through. There's my needle. And now I'm going to go all the way to the end. See that? All the way to the end. I'm going to tie a knot here at the beginning. We have a knot, and then the needle is all the way back here. Perfect. This is your stack that you want to bind. We're starting with the back, the very last card. You go in through the top and just pull, 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 and leave just a little bit of a tail. In through the middle and just pull. You don't need to tighten anything here. Out through the bottom. Excellent. And now back inside. So nothing is tight at this stage. Back inside. And now here you're going to go through. That's why we left the space here. You're going to go through that part there. Here we are, we're through, and now we need to tighten all of this. So you tighten basically in the same sequence that you started. You tighten here, then here, then here, and finally here. Perfect. Go back out through the same hole. It gets easy from here, quite simple really. Grab your next card from the stack and you go in through the top. You see that? We're binding now. We're binding the next card onto the previous card. Now you go in through the next hole, which happens to be the middle hole here. All right, and you, at this stage, you're pulling everything tight. Now you're going to loop. You go under the previous thread there, on the previous card, and you're looping under there, and then back under here. See that little thing we did there? Lovely. Back inside you go. Excellent. And now next hole down here. Pull, pull, pull. And again, we're securing to the card below. So the needle goes underneath the previous card's thread. Underneath and back inside the same hole. Perfect. Now we're going to loop underneath. I just want to say that in that tutorial that I've mentioned, once you've looped, you go back outside. In that tutorial I've mentioned all of these steps. I've written, you know, step by step, all on screen. So most definitely worthwhile going and having a look at that video. Grab your next card from your stack, and we are going into that hole adjacent to where, you know, the needle is. Now we're going back outside through the middle hole. Now instead of looping around the previous thread, the thing is we don't have the previous thread on this middle card. That thread is only on the first card. So what we do instead, we loop underneath the previous loop. You see that? So you go underneath. This is fiddly, so I just pop my needle right through onto the inside. We're just looping underneath, and then I come back out. There I am. See that? I hope you see that. Okay, and now we go back in the middle. Here we are back in the middle. Now again outside. Nice and tight. And again, we need to go underneath the previous loop. So you go, you know, it would be good if you had a curved needle for this, you know, for this type of binding. That would help. Here we are underneath that loop. Back inside. There's a whole lot of looping. I'm gonna go through the previous thread on the inside and then back outside. And we're nearly done. Grab your next card. You just keep going, however many cards you have. I happen to have just 4 here, so I'm just gonna do 4. But I think, you know, maybe it's confusing if you haven't done it before, which is why in that video called Greeting Cards Junk Journal Tutorial, I wrote all the steps. Go into the top hole, go, you know, we're inside, and now we're gonna go in through the next hole, and we're looping. We are looping underneath, again, underneath the previous loop. So if you have a curved needle, this would be quite easy to do. I kind of just go all the way in there and then back out. Perfect. Back inside. We need to secure that new loop that we've just done, you know. All right, we're inside. Now we have to go back outside. Here we are. And now again, back under the previous loop. And of course, back inside. At this point, if you want, you can tie a knot here. And your binding is complete. Chop that off, tie a double knot, you know, and your binding is done. And that's what it looks like. If you want your binding to be symmetrical on both sides, so you want to have this thread on this first signature as well, then you would simply just go back outside. Even if you tied that knot, it doesn't really matter. This is for looks only. Back inside through the middle. And outside again. And back inside through the middle. And there we go, we have that symmetrical look. It's very messy looking, but you know, at least it hopefully made sense. You can tie a knot here. And now what I did with this little booklet is exactly the same thing, but you will notice that I have attached these beautiful beads onto the side of the journal. Just looks so pretty like this. Initially, because the thread was down here, initially I wanted to have beads kind of down here, but I decided it looks better if it's up the top. And also the important thing for me is that they can be moved out of the way so that they're not in the way of, you know, writing and stuff. If they're there, they're in the way. So all I did, pretty obvious, but I just poked a hole up there. And here I am now on the outside, and I have all of this thread look, I had way too much, but it's better to have too much than get to your last card and not have enough thread, right? So now I'm here on the outside and I can start adding beads and all sorts of fun stuff. And the effect is really quite beautiful. And then what you do with the inside and the way you cover it, and you make little pockets and interesting things, like, I don't know, I just love this kind of thing that opens up, and then there's just a little signature that's bound in exactly the same way, 3-hole pamphlet stitch. You can see it here on the side, and it just makes the whole project so much more interactive. And of course you can go to town with what you add here. And also, in case if you're wondering about these cards, I don't have a link or anything, but I think the idea is for you guys to use what you have, really. But I found this little book and it's quite beautiful, but I never really use it for its intended purposes. I found this in an op shop years ago. I mean, who uses this anymore? No one. Or maybe they do, I don't know. And all of the cards came in here. So the idea is that you have, you know, the person's name and their date of birth and occasion and whatnot, and then you have cards there that you can use. So they will come with envelopes as well, and they're beautiful cards and they're blank and it's perfect. And I thought, you know, I'm going to use these greeting cards for this video because I've already used up all of my greeting cards that have writing on them in that previous video I've mentioned many times now, the greeting cards junk journal tutorial, and I go into depth on how you can cover the writing and all of that stuff. So have a look at that video. But for now, let's quickly recap and I'll give you more ideas as I go. So idea number 1 was the Dosa dough. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but you're just connecting the 2 cards together and creating signatures inside. Another thing that you can do is keep connecting the cards. So I'll show you this one as an example. This was also done in a tutorial, and this is using a 12 by 12 sheet of paper. So you can see what I've done here. What we did today is only this part. If you keep connecting your cards, you can have another place for a signature and another place for a signature and another place for a signature. I'll see if I can find this tutorial and I will link it in the description box. But basically it's a little booklet that, you know, you keep turning and there's all this fun stuff everywhere, and you keep turning and then you come to the end and then you keep turning and there's more fun stuff and things to look at and explore. So it doesn't have to only be 2 cards. I could potentially join these 2 together, and you see what happens. It becomes one larger project rather than just the 2 cards on their own. Okay, so that's idea number 1. Idea number 2 is to completely cover all traces of that greeting card, especially if it's one that you will never use, or like a Christmas card from 10 years ago that you don't need anymore. Completely cover it and create a mini journal. I have another example here to show you. Instead of the book plate, I just did a little flower there at the front, and then on the inside I used scrapbook paper that generally I wouldn't use in my projects, but I think when you put it in a book like this, it just works. It looks really quite nice. Idea number 3 is this gatefold business. I really want to call it a wardrobe, but it's a gatefold little thing. And again, you can really take this on a whole nother level by attaching more cards and doing this kind of thing. And then you can attach more and more and more, and you can just keep going. It will get quite thick, but it's an idea that you can play around with. I bet your brain is buzzing with ideas. Well, I hope so anyway. Idea number 4 is, of course, using the tab binding method to attach your cards together. And this is what I did in the previous tutorial. They don't have to be cards. They can be CD cases. They can be envelopes. See? Envelopes. They can be whole signatures. You know, you probably saw that video, but anyway, you can bind whole signatures using the tab binding. And then this is the one in the tutorial where I was saying you can use this method to bind your greeting cards. So that's what we did today, greeting cards. Idea number 5 is the one that I'm sure you've done before, which is making a little mini journal using your greeting cards as covers. Another idea that you can try is something like this. So instead of doing the pamphlet stitch, this is much quicker if you just poke 2 holes here and use some type of a ribbon to bind your greeting cards, or in this case it's just scrapbook paper, But you can use this type of binding, very simple. 2 holes, ribbon goes through, and then you tie a little bow here and you pop a little charm down the bottom, just like that, and it looks really quite cute. And idea number 6 is the kettle stitch binding, which is pretty much, you know, similar to tab binding. We're just binding the cards together, but rather than tabs, we're using the kettle stitch. You can apply the kettle stitch to signatures. It doesn't have to just be single folder pages or cards. Once you learn the kettle stitch, you can apply it to many different projects. And there we have it. That's all of the ideas covered. There's so many things that we can do, so many different directions that we can take with the greeting cards and with paper crafts in general. So even if you've done these before or you've seen them before, I hope you feel inspired. Please let me know which one of these projects is your favorite. I would have to say perhaps this one or this one. I love them all, which is why I'm showing them to you. In any case, please let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!